Sorry.
No worries. So I'm going to start the recording now. And
Okay.
well, thank you, Mark, for joining me here in a very intimistic, a very spontaneous podcast. I just called you, and you just answered, and we've been exchanging a few lines or a few chat messages because you have this, or you have developed this extreme wellness concept. I heard about you as being, or I perceive you as being Wim Hof, one of Wim Hof professors down under. You are the one that can explain what Wim feels, but are not able to explain in the correct terms. He uses his own terms, and thank God for him. But
And his charisma, yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't. Some of the as I say, he wouldn't be able to pass his own academy. But he doesn't have to because he invented this shit, right?
He's got charisma, yeah.
Exactly. So, but that's why the reason Wim is the reason that you and I talk, because you have supported Wim and also used the breath and the cold and the heat in your own extreme wellness. And as I see it, I'm talking to interesting people that I find interesting, and what can contribute to this situation where it's like it's what to do. We don't know what to do, but we can always do something.
Oh yeah,
and
there's always something to do. In fact, there's always not just something to do, there's always something to do to make whatever happens the best possible thing that could have happened.
Yeah.
And that you'll look back and say that I'm grateful for that.
Exactly.
And in fact, I've written a book about that. It's an illustrated children's book, but it's a very famous story about a man who has a horse, and the horse, the villagers say, that's good that you've got a horse, and the man says, I don't know if it's good or bad. And then the horse runs away, and the villagers say, that's bad, and the man says, I don't know if that's good or bad. And I don't know if you know that story. And then
I've heard about that story. Yeah.
So I've added another dimension to that story. So in each episode of the story, the man starts out with a horse, and there's kind villagers who say that's good, and there's selfish villagers who say that's bad because you're richer than us. The man says, I don't know if it's good or bad. And the man's son says, I'm going to ride the horse. So the boy rides the horse, and he, feeds it and, looks after and rides through the forest. And he loves that horse more than anything else in the world. And the boy gives thanks for the horse. Well, then one day the horse runs away, and the kind villagers say that's bad, and the selfish villagers say that's good, and now you're no longer so richer than us. And the man says, I don't know if it's good or bad. And the boy says, I'm going to go play with the other boys. And he starts playing with the other boys and realizes he loves having friends and doing all these games, and he gives thanks that the horse ran away because now he's got his friends. And as the horse comes back with some stallions, and they say it's good or bad, and the man says, I don't know. And the boy says, okay, I'm going to ride the stallions. And he rides the stallions and loves the power of the stallions. And then he's riding one of the stallions, he breaks his leg. And the kind ones say that's bad, and the selfish villagers say it's good, everyone needs to suffer. And the man says, I don't know if it's good or bad. And the boy says, okay, I'm going to study with my father now. So he starts studying with his father, and he realizes he loves learning. But he never had a chance before. He's always with his horse or with his friends. And so then he gives thanks that he broke his leg. And then the soldiers come and take all the other boys away to come to war, and they can't take the boy with the broken leg. And the kind villagers say, that's good, you're not in danger. And the selfish villagers say, that's bad, you're fighting for our cause. And the man says, I don't know if it's good or bad. And the boy says, okay, I'm going to play the girls now. And I won't tell you that. So it's the beautiful, it's a really, a friend of mine spent 2 years illustrating this book.
Wow.
So it's like really amazing images. But that's the traditional story.
Yeah,
but what it says is, in any situation, you can make up a reason why saying that's really good. You can make up a reason why saying it's bad. You can say it's just neutral, the universe is. Or you can be in action, have a sense of discovery, and realize whatever happened was the best possible thing that could have ever happened. And so, if for any negative thought you ever have, there's an equally valid and equally powerful positive thought that you can also have. Yeah. And it's up to you to choose which thought. So what to do in this situation? One is pick your attitude. That's at the outset. So having a positive attitude is really important. And the other thing, I can't stress this enough, is, don't be scared. Don't give into fear and anxiety. And our body has two arms of the autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight and flight. And what that does, it activates your body to look outwards. So you get ready to fight for your life in a battle, or to run away from a tiger. So all your energy is into your muscles and your eyes and responses, so you can you can save your life. So that releases adrenaline and cortisol, which actively turn off your immune system, actively turns off your healing responses, your inflammatory responses. That's how, women manage to cope with lipoprotein, lipopolysaccharide from E. coli, because through the breathing activates adrenaline, turns down your immune response. Yeah. So when you're scared in fight and flight, you're actively suppressing your immune system. So that actually makes infection more possible. Now, so what you need to do is then, you can't just stay in rest and digest mode, but the parasympathetic mode, which is rest and digest, that actually is when you're focused internally. And that's when you heal, that's when you regenerate, that's when you eat, that's when you sleep, that's when you make love, that's when you do creative things, drawing, sewing, writing. And you need to balance the times when you're in arousal and fight and flight mode with times as equally as much time when you're in rest and digest, regenerate, recover, recuperate mode. And so there's a lot of activities that you can do that will generate that rest and digest mode. I've actually written a poem about them. I could recite it here.
Yeah, do that.
But and if you, in this poem, which I can link to, I've actually referenced it. So every action is in this very brief poem. There are 50 different actions that you can do, and these actions can be done anywhere without any sort of money or equipment or training or anything. Yeah, and you can do them at home.
I just want to interrupt you a little bit, because that's exactly the other thing, is that because we know doing good things for ourselves is very difficult, and we have a very ability to have excuses about it. If it costs money, if it's difficult, if the cold is a very strong force, the heat, but I feel uncomfortable. We don't like to feel uncomfortable. But in this situation where we're having an external stress or an external uncomfortableness put upon us, we can choose to do something positive, and it's for free. That's the big fact. Yeah. And it's out there. Like Steve has given his course, Steve Severinsen, the ultimate superhuman, the natural Viking superhero. He's given his courses, not his courses, but his books for free. And Wim is giving out his app for free. You're giving out this talk, and you're doing these things and giving your advice and helping.
I've been working harder than I've ever worked in my life in the last month. And I haven't earned a cent, but I'm just called to action. I remember being 10 years old, and I read the book called The Limits to Growth by the Club of Rome. And this was a book that predicted the collapse of modern civilization. And in this book is a series of graphs. The book was written in 1972. I'm 56 this year. So this book was written in 1970. I got it in 1974 when I was 10. And in this book, it has the graphs of the world's population going up, and resource utilization going up, and pollution going up. And they said basically on a limited Earth, you can't keep on having exponential increase in population, resource utilization, and pollution. And on the graph, it actually had this big peak, and then it all collapsed around about 2020. Wow. And I remember being 10 years old thinking, wow, that's all about 2020. 2020 is a good number. And I was born on March 20. So on March 20, 2020, that's when the world's going to sort of flip over and collapse. And I've been waiting for that for the last 40 years, more than 40 years. And it pretty much happened on my birthday, because it was like, that was the weekend that all the shutdown happened on World Water Day was March 22nd, and March 20th is actually International Happiness Day. So I've been, preparing for this, and now all the things I've been studying and working towards have actually, become really needed now. So I've been working so hard on this. So this poem just came out of all the research I've been doing for the last 38 years at university on natural medicine. So it's a very brief poem, but these are all activities you can do to relieve anxiety. And I call it going from wired and tired to chilled and fulfilled. So it's a cutesy poem, but it starts with: hold someone's hand, gaze into their eyes. Run barefoot in nature, bask in sunrise. Choose a dance partner, go find your groove. Do Tai Chi or yoga, mindfully move. Share a massage, enjoy healing touch. Focus on one thing and don't think too much. Make time for a hobby. Play chess, fly a kite. Make use of your hands, draw, paint, sew or write. Help someone in need, donate to a cause. Play games, meditate, read stuff from bookstores. Turn off your screens, get a good sleep, Declutter, spark joy, love what you keep. Dig around in a garden, pick up a guitar, slip into a bathtub, sauna or spa. Care for a pet, take up a sport. Go on vacation and make your home a resort. Lie in a hammock, relieve pent-up stress. Relax and do nothing, then do even less. Laugh out loud, share a joke, give someone a kiss. Say a prayer, chant a mantra, follow your bliss. So if people on my blog, that is there with links, each one of those you can click on the link and there's a systematic review or a meta-analysis or randomized controlled trial saying how that activity enhances immunity, enhances well-being, relieves stress, anxiety. So they're things people can do at home during the lockdown rather than concentrating on the deaths and the news and the fear and all of that. So that's a really important thing to do. There's another really brief poem that just came out after teaching ice bathing for the last couple of years, 3-4 years, and saunas and doing the extreme wellness stuff. I would tell people there are actions that you can hack your body to mimic parasympathetic mode. And I call these the 10 hacks to relax. And a friend of mine turned this into a song and a little animated video, which I can share with your links and with your viewers. But it's really simple. It takes 20 seconds and it's touch all your fingers, wiggle your toes, soften your stomach, breathe through your nose, sigh, smile, swallow, sing, la 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 la, flutter your eyelids and focus within. So those 10 activities mimic the parasympathetic activity. So they turn your sympathetic nervous system down and they turn up your parasympathetic nervous system and put you in rest and digest mode. And I call that emotional first aid. Because anytime you're anxious, upset, scared, or in pain, if you do those actions, you will calm yourself down. So it's really relaxing on demand. So I think it's really important that people get in the right headspace. And the more I'm learning about, I wrote these a couple of months ago now, but I'm learning this virus is not that dangerous. It depends on who you listen to. But what is dangerous, it's a trigger for all the people who have control in the world to get more control. And the media is controlled, our food is controlled, the electromagnetic spectrum around us is getting more and more controlled. What you can say and can't say is controlled. All of this is giving the whole financial system. So the people in power have just consolidated their power through this whole event. But the coronavirus itself, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, what I'm learning is it's not such a bad disease. In fact, an antibody study was done, last night, they released the results saying a lot of people in the community have it and they've never even had a disease, but they've got antibodies, which means they've been exposed to it and they're asymptomatic. And what happens with the vast majority of respiratory viruses is, one is respiratory viruses like lower temperatures. So that's why the flu season's during winter. And during winter, there's a number of factors that give the virus an edge over our body. And that is, one, the virus likes cold, and the coldest part of your body during the winter period is your nose and your nasal cavity, because that's the heat exchange. That's where you're heating up air to go to your lungs, and you're cooling down air in summer you're cooling down the air, but in winter you're heating up the air, so your nose gets quite cold. And the other thing that happens in winter, there's less sunshine exposure, so you get less vitamin D, often not so much fresh food. You might be in a house that's a bit moldy, and there's other stresses, in closer quarters. So that's when your immune system is suppressed. But even then, what would happen is you'd breathe the virus in, and the first line of defense for your immune system is the mucosa, or at least for respiratory viruses, is your skin, but it's actually the mucosa inside your nasal cavity. And that mucosa is super specialized, and it's covered with this liquid layer of mucus that moves all the time, and the cilia beat about 10 to 15 times per second. It's like the waves of wheat on a field, moving this mucus along continually. It's a few millimeters per minute that this mucus keeps on moving along. And what it's designed to do is capture viruses and bacteria and particles that come in, like in this sticky layer of mucus, but then there are cells, and some of them are actually normal bacteria and normal viruses that are always there, that take a pathogen and present it to your immune cells in that mucosa. So those immune cells then say, oh, that's a new virus, haven't seen that before. I don't like that. I'll make an antibody against that. They make the antibody, that virus then gets swept away and you sniff it or swallow it or you cough it out. And suddenly you've got antibodies and you've never had a sickness. And that's what happens to most people. However, when you're cold and you're immunosuppressed, and especially cold air doesn't hold as much moisture. So when you've got dry mucus, the mucus gets thicker, it doesn't move as easily, the virus can hang around longer in the cells and then take over a few cells and start reproducing. But even then it takes a few days, 3 to 5 days or a week even, for the virus to stay in your nose, to multiply enough to then get down in your lungs and cause this sort of cytokine cascade, this big inflammatory response. But that's, you can strengthen your first line of defense by having just warm, moist air, by keeping that nasal mucosa nice and moist. So you don't want the air in your house to dry out. So having a pot of soup on all the time, because cooking will put a lot of water vapor into the air. Having cups of tea all the time, and even when you have a cup of tea, if you're nursing a cup of tea, just the amount of steam, you're actually humidifying your nose just by when you drink the cup of tea. Having indoor plants will buffer the humidity inside your house. Having the heater on so that air is warm. Warm air will hold more moisture. Dry your clothes inside. So these are all things you can do to raise the humidity and keep your house warm, and that protects your nasal mucosa, keeps it moving nice and smoothly, so the virus never gets into your body. If the virus does get into your body, your natural second line of defense is to raise a fever. And what the fever does, it makes conditions more hostile for the virus, but a fever turns on your innate immune system and also your acquired immune system. And what happens then is, if you think about a virus doesn't have any repair mechanism. It's just this RNA with a lipid coat around it. But our bodies and mammals, we have very sophisticated systems for coping with high temperatures. We can not only make heat, but because when we exercise, we generate heat, we overheat, we go into a sauna. So we've got these heat shock proteins and this all these homeostatic thermoregulatory processes to keep our temperature, both cellular level and a physiological level, under control. So we can tolerate a much higher temperature than a virus can. And when you heat up your body, you raise your body temperature by 1 or 2 degrees, which happens in a sauna, happens when you exercise, happens in a hot bath, then the immune cells, their membranes become more fluid, the antigens on their membranes become more active, and they can respond much faster and more aggressively to a viral threat. So that heat itself activates your immune system. It also does a lot of other things. It activates your cardiovascular system. When you're hot in a sauna, for example, you actually naturally hyperventilate. It's called hyperthermia-induced hyperventilation. It just means you pant because your heart's pumping more, your plasma volume increases, the peripheral vascular resistance decreases. So your heart's pumping more, but you're not generating waste products. So it's good for flushing waste products out of your body. And then if you alternate that with cold, the blood goes from your flushing through your skin and muscles to flushing through your internal organs, which means your liver and your kidneys get flushed, so you detoxify. It's a way of flushing out the toxicity from your muscles and skin, and then detoxifying when you go from hot to cold. But when you're in that hot, that stimulates your immune system, stimulates all your organ systems, and it builds this hormetic stress response. So it makes you more tolerant. It also makes you more tolerant for heat. So if you ever have to, as a prevention, so if you have to generate a fever later on, you can tolerate a higher fever, which means you're more likely to clear the virus if you can tolerate a higher fever. So just regular heat as a prevention, like regular saunaing, and hot and cold especially, is a really good prevention. And there was a big study done in Finland of 2,000 men over 20 years, and they showed that the men who had more regular saunas had less respiratory infections, less flu, less viral infections, less pneumonia if they did regular saunas. So there's good epidemiological evidence to say saunas can prevent viral infections and pneumonia. But then also heat can actually treat a viral infection or pneumonia by enhancing your immune system and your ability to clear the virus. So, and the other thing, in a sauna, the coronaviruses and other respiratory viruses, they have this lipid envelope. So they're enveloped RNA viruses. that's like coconut oil. And you know, when coconut oil hits a certain temperature, it goes from being solid to just to liquid. And the temperature for these viruses, the coronaviruses, is around about 55 to 60 degrees. So they're saying 15 minutes at 55 degrees and shorter times at high degrees, it'll just melt. And 55 degrees, you can't get your body temperature to 55 degrees, you'd die. But if you're in a sauna and the sauna is 70, 80, 90, 100, 110 degrees in the sauna, the air in your nose is way above 55 degrees. So any viral particles that are in that surface of your nose, they're going to melt. You know, they can't survive that temperature, where you can survive it, you know, quite comfortably. Although it's, when I say quite comfortably, it's really good to get to the point where you discover how comfortable you are at your limit. And we do that in the cold and the hot. So it's how comfortable are you being uncomfortable? Yeah. And there's a point when you go into a sauna when, you know, it might take a while and you're okay, and then you start to sweat. And there's a point when you get really hot and it forces you to just focus and breathe. I call it forced mindfulness. Because there's a point where, you know, you're in the sauna and then you get to the point, okay, I'm really hot now. But if you just focus and breathe, you can stay there for a few more minutes. So that's exercising your heat tolerance. It's exercising your heart, your lungs, your liver and kidneys because of the blood flow, your skin, you're sweating, so you're detoxifying through the sweat, you're detoxifying your liver and kidneys. And you're actually detoxifying your mind because you're not worrying about things when you're just forced mindful and breathing. And then if you go out to the cold, you've swapped the blood flow around, and both heat and cold activate heat shock proteins. And heat shock proteins are part of our cellular defense against stress, and thermal stress specifically. That's why they're called heat shock proteins. And they stop your proteins being misfolded when it's hot. Viruses don't have these heat shock proteins. So when they get damaged by heat, they're damaged and they melt and they're gone. Whereas we can tolerate heat quite well. So heat is a really valuable resource. And generally it takes energy to make a fever, but we can outsource that energy to the sauna or to the hot bath. So it's like, you know, you're outsourcing that energy it requires. And it's fascinating, when I was researching this article on heat, which hopefully we published this week, you know, heat isn't just used by mammals, fever to treat viruses. All vertebrates, in fact, invertebrates, so insects, birds, reptiles, they use their behavior. When they've got a viral infection, they'll go into the sun or in a hot place and heat their body up to help combat that virus. And in fact, there are some plants, when plants get a viral infection, the plants will respire, because plants can do respiration as well as photosynthesis, and raise their plant temperature 1 to 2 degrees to actually help overcome the virus. So heat has been antiviral strategy for 1.5 billion years. And through 600 million years of, you know, vertebrate evolution, heat has been used against viruses. And humans forever have used, since they were humans, have always gone to hot springs and sat in the hot springs as, you know, heat, healing, regeneration, spiritual connection to the nature. And, you know, all the traditions around, you know, the Scandinavian countries, Nordic countries, you know, saunas, banyas, in Japan, the hot springs, you know, they do that in winter, and they do it all year round because it's great, because it has so many other benefits. So heat is an amazing strategy. So I recommend people, you know, not to stress, to have a great attitude, to find where is the gift in this, because there's an amazing gift in this situation, in every situation. But now particularly, I mean, what a gift to be able to spend time at home with your friends, or use all these skills I've been generating for so many years to be able to take them to the world, or work on that project, or, you know, there's definitely a gift here for everybody. Absolutely. And so I think that's really important. And there's lots of other things. I mentioned that in a sauna, you naturally hyperventilate. When you hyperventilate, you make your blood alkaline. And a virus does not like an alkaline condition. In fact, they're not with COVID-19 virus, but, you know, with the coronavirus, but other coronaviruses, when the conditions are alkaline, they stop reproducing and lose their infectivity, and they die. Well, died, they get destroyed. They're not really alive. So you can hyperventilate to make your blood alkaline, and that is actually an effective antiviral strategy. So doing, you know, the Wim Hof practice, so hyperventilation and going to breath holding, when you go to your physiological extremes, you create a hostile environment for these obligate parasites, which are viruses, to reproduce inside us. And your body can cope with that, but these viruses don't have the same mechanisms to cope. So using heat, using breath, and then using common sense. So sunshine is an incredibly positive, amazing antiviral. So going out into the sun, getting 15, 20 minutes, on the soft spots of your sun, of your body, exposure to sunlight is really important. Fresh air, sunlight, and then food, green leafy vegetables. There's a whole lot of supplements you can do, but cups of tea, there's, I'm a big fan of Tulsi, holy basil, which has antiviral properties. There's lots of different herbal teas, which are not just antiviral, but anxiolytic. They can calm you down. And actually, you mentioned, when with heat, with the steam, there's a traditional, it's a traditional Australian sort of remedy for a common cold, but I think they use it around the world. In fact, a lot of, I know in Tibet and a lot of Asian countries, they have these herbal steam baths. In Australia, what we do is we get a bowl of hot water, a bowl of boiling water, and we put some essential oils, some eucalyptus oil or tea tree oil in that bowl of boiling water. We put a towel over our head and we just breathe in the steam. It's another way of, putting heat into your nasal sinuses, nasal cavity. And the essential oils like tea tree and eucalyptus have antiviral properties. So they open up the airways. They have mucolytic properties, which means they break up the mucus and help the mucus clear. They have anxiolytic properties, which means they relieve anxiety. So they calm you down. The heat and the antiviral properties will help destroy any viruses that are up your nose, and they help the mucus clear away. So just having some essential oils, a bowl of water, put that over your head, it can be really, really effective. And then there's things like vitamin C and zinc and medicinal mushrooms and other specific herbs like astragalus and echinacea, and there's so many natural remedies. And this is actually the wonderful, I've spent my life studying natural remedies. I've written big textbooks on herbs and supplements. Now this is a 2-volume, this is only one of the volumes. This is a 2-volume book on herbs and supplements. And there's there's like 40,000 references in here. So there's hundreds of herbs and natural supplements that you can use to boost your immunity. But one of the most powerful one is social connection, like being close to people, touch, physical touch, massage, fun, laughter, being around people. The greatest joys we get in life aren't from things we buy or things we have or what we do. It's from what we share with other people. It's also the most challenging things in our life sometimes with other people, but it's the most rewarding. So this whole social isolation thing is devastating. Having people go inside their homes, away from the sun, away from exercise, away from other people, and then putting fear into them is actually incredibly damaging and I think extremely dangerous, and it's literally going to kill people.
It is.
So I think people have to be really aware of that. And I've noticed that there's quite a bit of I move in a lot of different circles. I'm in a bit of a bubble, but there's a lot of people kicking back now and realizing that we've been hoodwinked. This whole viral epidemic isn't what they say it is. The way they're counting deaths is overstating it. That they're hyping up the media about the fear, and they're really manufacturing fear and dissent and isolation, and they're using that as an excuse for these really medical martial law measures. And when you think about it, our immune systems have been under attack on an industrial scale for more than 100 years now. And it actually started with the First World War. The First World War, all the tools of industry were focused on death. How do we kill humans? They use chlorine gas and they use bombs and all the technology and the logistics around how do we kill people, and then radios. And then after the war, they were all turned on the civilian population. So since the First World War, we've started putting poison in our drinking water. We put chlorine in our drinking water. We've started using NPK fertilizer and sort of depleting the natural soil. We've been using radio electromagnetic frequencies in the air. We've been using pharmaceutical medicines, and we've been using a whole financial system based on debt and stress. So that's happened since the First World War. And then in the Second World War, we upped the toxicity when we added nuclear radiation, nuclear pollution. Then we started using organophosphate pesticides. The nerve gas from the Second World War was turned into pesticides, and then we started making really highly processed food that was, designed to make money, not to make nutrition. And then we added, genetically modified organisms, and then we added nanoparticles and plastics and microplastics, and then more radiation, and then we up from 2G, 3G, 4G, now 5G. So all of these are assaults on our immune system. I mean, it's amazing we're all as healthy as we are, because we have had, there's been some advantages from the industrialization. There's more people, we've got better food, better lifestyles than we've ever had, but we also have this incredible barrage of toxic insults on our body. And what we have to do is remove that stress. So, eating more natural foods, removing yourself from electromagnetic radiation where that's possible, having, these calm, relaxed periods, doing activities that we really enjoy or that stress our body in a positive way. And that's when I sort of develop these extreme wellness practices. I go for the 5 elements of life. And that's the 5 elements in the equation of photosynthesis or respiration is water, glucose, oxygen, temperature, and carbon dioxide. So they're the 5 elements that we're made of. They're the 5 elements that all our cells talk in terms of. And they're all dominated by one major organ. So that's our bladder, our bowel, our breath, our body, and our brain. So they're your 5 channels of elimination. And I've got this program that I've been teaching and running on retreats and things where I talk about you filter and flush your bladder, you feast and fast your bowel, you pant and hold your breath, you hot and cold your body, and you do everything and then do nothing with your brain. So you actively do everything when you're in the flow state where you're fully engaged with things, and then you actively do nothing where you're not even breathing, or your heart's barely beating and you're actively meditating and doing it as little as possible. And you might think you're doing nothing, but there's always less you can do. So it's a spiritual practice to do nothing. Yes. And there's a saying in martial arts that the greatest movement comes from the stillest point. So when you find that still point within you, that gives you, that still point is always calm, and it's the deep inner well of your being. So the outside of you might be turbulent and chaotic, but there's always that deep still point that you can access. So accessing that on a regular basis is really important. And that focus within helps boost your internal defenses, your immunity, your psychological resolve, and it actually more defines who you are. So you've actually become more of yourself. So once you've visited the extremes and then you find that bliss point in the middle, you actually, the extremes define how you work in the world and who you are and where your tolerance is for certain things. And then that bliss point in the middle it's the same for everybody. Stillness within you is the stillness within me. That's when we say namaste, I honor the place in you where the entire universe resides. And when you're in that place in you and I'm in that place in me, we are one. So accessing that stillness is really powerful, but then also accessing your ability to cope with these incredible stresses. So, I talk about, getting dehydrated, go into a sauna, get dehydrated, and then fill up on really good quality water. And you need to filter your water, because if you don't filter your water, you are a filter. So you don't want to drink chlorinated water. You don't want to drink water with all these pollutants in it, and solvents and pesticides and pharmaceuticals and fire retardants. And so you want to drink really good water and flush your body. Sauna will help that, but flushing your body continually with herbal teas that will help detoxify your liver and help your kidneys expel other toxicity. So you want to keep your body really well flushed. So you want to filter and flush your bladder. You want to feast and fast your bowel, and you fast every night. It's not something you have to do on a special occasion. Every night you fast, and the feast is in the first bite. So what you do is just prolong that fast until you're really hungry. Wait till you're really hungry till you have your first bite. And you might find that's at midday or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. So often I'm finding 3 or 4 in the afternoon and I haven't been hungry. And I wait till I'm hungry. And when you're hungry, you start to visualize food. You start to dream, what's food? What am I going to eat? And then you can settle. So wait till you're and that means your body's fully prepared for the meal. Or your digestive enzymes are there. It means you've cleared out the previous meal. Your digestive organs are waiting to process the next lot of food, rather than just pumping food on top of food that's already there. So feasting and fasting, which is intermittent fasting, there's a lot of research on how beneficial that is. So that's a really powerful thing. And then panting and holding your breath. So panting, hyperventilation, you go, high oxygen, low carbon dioxide, alkaline condition, and then hold your breath, you go high carbon dioxide, low oxygen, and that's acidic conditions. So you're going from the extreme of alkaline to the extreme of acidity, from the extreme of high oxygen, low carbon dioxide to high carbon dioxide, low oxygen. And then when you do the recovery breaths, and this is where I differ a little bit from what Wim talks about, I talk about the 5 phases of breathing. The flowing breath is what you do when you're just breathing, you're not even thinking about it. Just breath flows in and out, you don't even have to think. The staccato breath is the hyperventilation, backwards and forwards. The chaos breath is the breath hold, because you don't really know when it's going to end. The recovery breath is lyrical. It's joyous, and it's bigger, a bit deeper, and you almost sigh. It's like a joyous thing when you held your breath and suddenly you're breathing again. And then if you just then let your body settle down, you go into what I call the stillness breath. And what happens then is your body, just because you've been to the extremes of alkaline and extremes of acid, your body finds its homeostatic point. And when you're doing that, you'll find that you'll hardly be breathing at all. Your respiratory rate will drop 4, 5, 6 breaths below your normal respiratory rate. Your pulse rate can drop between 5 and 10 beats per minute below your resting pulse rate. Yep. I don't know any other exercise you can drop your resting pulse rate, but this is one. And what happens also when you're doing the breath hold, you can become quite hypoxic. So your oxygen levels can drop. Now, normally your brain will consume about 25% of the oxygen. And when you're getting hypoxic,
the frontal lobes, right?
Well, the whole brain. I mean, the whole brain, in terms of your basal metabolism, your brain is one of the most energy hungry organs in your body. That 25% of the oxygen in your metabolism goes energy in your brain. But when you're becoming hypoxic, as a survival mechanism, your brain says, "Oh, I better turn myself off to give save the energy for the vital organs." So actually, it's a survival mechanism to turn your brain off. Yeah. Again, it's like a forced mindfulness. It's a forced meditation. Mm-hmm. So then, after you've done your recovery breath, and if you just keep your mind quiet in that stillness breath, you'll find that your mind is hardly working, you're hardly breathing, your pulse is really slow, and then you can actively do nothing. And what I talk about and really try to emphasize when you're doing these extreme wellness practices, you don't want to push past your tolerance, but you want to go to the edge of your tolerance. When you're hyperventilating, see how dizzy you can get and how tingly you can get, but not overdo it. And then with your breath hold, do it as hard as you can until you can't breathe anymore. But then you want to spend at least as much time in the still spot, the homeostatic balance point, as you did at the extremes. Yes. And I think that's a tradition, in the Nordic countries. You go to a sauna and you do the hot and cold, but then you spend half an hour at least relaxing and just going back into balance. And that time going back into balance, I think, is as important, if not more important, than the time you're spending in the sauna or in the ice. Because when you're in the sauna and the ice, you're stressing your body, and your body's going from one way to the other. But then to be able to come back into that balance, and that the greatest movement comes from that stillest point. So finding that balance within you, I think, is really, really important and powerful. So
it's like a recovery breath, right? Or just after? Well, the breathing is not. It's good for the extreme, but the recovery breath kind of like balance everything out, and then afterwards, like the third part or fourth part, of the Wim Hof breathing is actually the stillness after the round, so to speak.
Yeah, and so you need to spend time in that stillness after the round. Yeah. So panting and holding your breath is really powerful. The other one's hot and cold for your body.
Yes.
So take your body to heat, and you can do that with exercise. I mean, you can raise your body temperature a couple of degrees when you're really exercising and sweating, or you can outsource that energy to a sauna or to a hot bath or a hot spring. Yes. And then, and I mean, that's one of my favorite things. I love hot springs, and because you can do it with friends. You can sit around, with friends, joking and relaxing while you're doing this big cardiovascular workout. While you're doing this big detoxification, Exactly. It's and then you're literally immersed and grounded in nature doing that. Exactly. So that's a fantastic thing to do.
I have 2 points, Mark, that I want to address before I let you go again. The first thing is fantastic. Now, Denmark, I don't know about Australia, but the world is opening up now because we need because otherwise people go crazy and the economical situation will be completely chaos. So they're opening up, and I know they open up now for 10 people. I have a private sauna, only a little one, but the saunas will start to open up, and now I will start to, with your permission, as the Extreme Wellness Danish ambassador or instructor or whatever, what kind of title you want to give me, I want to take it out to the saunas because, yeah, like 2 months ago, I was on the brink of making my big breakthrough with the Wim Hof method here in Denmark, but then the Corona came. But these spas, when they start to open up, I have private spas, access to that, and I also have to public spas. But we are at the moment within, 9 feet, 2 meters have separation. We have to clean the place in between people. So what do you take on the virus? That was the first part I want to talk to you about, the virus. How do you protect the people from not passing on the virus between each other in a sauna and in an ice bath? How do we go about that? Or shouldn't we be afraid of it at all?
Well, I'd say you shouldn't be afraid of it at all. I think the whole social distancing and the mask it's actually bullshit, and it's made to promote fear. I mean, once the virus is in the population, it's going to go through and there'll be herd immunity. This virus is actually now that we're getting real data, now that independent labs are starting to study this, we're realizing maybe 0.1% fatality rate, and it's only if you're at risk. So it's about the same as the flu. This is not more dangerous than the flu. What is dangerous is the level of control and the fear and all of that associated with it. But I mean, I'm working. I've got friends, and I work a lot with the spa industry, the hot springs industry. Most of the saunas in the world right now are closed.
Yeah.
I'm horrified that the International Sauna Association came out with a statement. It's on the web saying saunas are dangerous. Don't use them. You're going to get infected, and that's just utter bullshit. In a Finnish sauna, where you've got 70, 80, 90 degrees, the virus can't survive in that. The virus is just going to melt. The virus isn't alive anyway. It can only survive in your cells. So you're not going to transmit the virus in a sauna. So that's totally safe. A virus can't replicate. It's not like bacteria that replicate in water either. So, even if you had a big viral load and you coughed into the pool, it's not going to replicate there. Someone would have to go in and sort of drink that, and then even then they're not going to get it. Because you have to inhale it. Eating the virus isn't going to give it to you. Respiratory virus you have to breathe in. So it's not transmissible in the water or in the sauna. So you're very safe there.
What about the ice bath? When you touch the surface and stuff, but that's the same story, right?
It's the same story. And in fact, and no one's talked about this, and this is my theory now. But you know how I said that your body would normally just inhale the virus, you detect it in the immune cells in lining your mucosa, and that's how your body gets educated about the viral populations of pathogens in your environment. Well, the whole idea of if you touch things in your environment, touch your nose, that's a good thing, because what you're doing is if you touch a virus, you're not going to make antibodies from touching it. Your skin won't make the antibodies. You have to take that virus to your nose and educate the mucosa, the immune system that's available in the mucosa of your nasal cavity, to say, these are the viruses that are in my environment right now. And the best way to do that is to touch things and touch your nose. And touching your nose, I mean, why do we do it? People do it like 10 times an hour unconsciously. Not just humans do it, all primates do it. And touching your nose is a natural thing. And I have a theory, and I've been trying to research this. No one's really done research on this because there's no patents or money in it. But the whole idea that touching your nose is part of your immunosurveillance to educate your immune system about what's in your environment. And you're not going to give a high dose of a virus when you touch it in your nose, but just enough so you can get caught in the mucous membrane. Your immune cells can study what it is, make some antibodies, and then you've generated immunity. And you've never been sick. So, this whole wash your hands all the time, don't touch anything, and 6 feet distance and social distancing, I think that's fear mongering. I think but if you're an operator of a commercial facility, and now I'm actually working with a lot of commercial facilities. I think tomorrow there's a Femtech meeting of the Federation of, it's a balneotherapy or the hot spring industry. They're coming together saying, how can we open up our facilities? What protocols do we have to put in place? Infection control and social distancing, and limiting the number of people, because they're desperate to open their facilities. They're all going bankrupt, and their facilities, I mean, hot springs and saunas, are some of the most healthy facilities that people desperately need to not just overcome the virus, because the virus is actually I think they're making it out to be much more virulent than it actually is. But also just to cope with the stress and the social isolation and all the fear and everything. So, I'm really keen to see these saunas opening back up and these facilities opening back up, because they're essential for our health. And I mean, the Romans used to, they had a bathing culture. And what I'd like to see is that we bring this sort of culture into mainstream medicine. I'd love to see saunas and hot bathing and contrast bathing, ice bathing and hot bathing in hospitals, in aged care homes, in schools, in gymnasiums, in people's homes, to realize if you make this part of your everyday life, you don't have to worry about the viruses. No, you've built up a resilience. And it's, in fact, it's not just you have to worry about a virus, because a vaccine will treat one virus, but heat therapy, hot cold therapy, and the breathing and these other things will actually make you more resilient to any virus. But by the way, they'll also make you resilient against heart disease and Alzheimer's disease and other pneumonias and all-cause mortality and. So it actually just builds your general resilience and your happiness.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think it's, for you to go and open your sauna up to your friends, you have to comply with local regulations and this, but personally, I would not be too concerned about all the social distancing requirements, and certainly inside the sauna or inside the bath, you're not going to transmit the virus.
But that's the point. It's like, because I follow you, of course, because I have been on this path for a few years, because I had this recurrent streptococcal infection, and 2 years ago I Googled never sick again. And now I still get it, because I haven't changed the course. I'm still stressed, and especially finally again finding my dream occupation and trying to survive. And then 2 months ago everything was shut down, and then I took my own medicine and did a very serious, last Thursday I did a very, very tough contrast training session, and I got sick because I pushed myself too hard. So
and that's really important. You really have to know how hard to push yourself.
I know, but I'm a fighter. I used to be a fighter, and I trained till I vomited. So, and I'm so desperate.
So you need to do some more gentle things. I mean, that's the alpha male in you, that you want to push hard and faster and climb Everest in your board shorts and do that. Exactly. And what I recommend to people is explore your limits very gently.
Yes.
And just when you just visit, don't push your limits, just visit them. Visit them very gently.
Witness
Sorry?
Yeah, witness. Just go there and be a witness at the same time, so
exactly.
You can stop yourself before you go beyond, right?
Yeah, and then what you do is, the next day you'll find that, hey, wow, I can go even further. They naturally expand. You don't have to push them out. They'll naturally expand with no force. So you just visit the edge. And what I recommend is, whether it's the hot or the cold or what you're doing, just get to the point where the stress of the heat or the cold, because they're cold stress and hot heat stress, it is a stress, gets you to the point where it just forces you to go within and breathe.
Yeah.
And then do that, 2 breaths, 5 breaths, 10 breaths, 30 breaths, but just, do it for a minute or so, just being with the heat, with the stress, and then that's enough.
Yes.
You don't have to push hard.
No.
But then you'll find tomorrow, the next day, you'll be able to tolerate more, because your body is made to be resilient, and it increases its tolerance as you stress it.
Exactly. Fantastic. Well, I had so many questions, but you answered them all, and but again, it's like the main question. But maybe we do a little bit of summary, because you had not a shitload, but a heaps load of very, very powerful information. I understood most of it, but the listeners or my following or whoever will see this might not understand as much, and maybe much more than I, but it doesn't matter. It's good, for I have a huge community from Wim Hof interested people, and also instructors. So I'm going to share this in an instructor group. So, because there were some really good pointers in here that we need to share, and how to cope with this situation. And we need, of course, as you say, we need to follow the safety recommendation from our health organization or health authorities. But beyond that, then it's really nice to know that they are overly protective. They are like a mother, and you are like a father. That's perfect. So the social or the health organization is like the mother. Be careful, be careful, be careful. But you are the father saying, go for it. These are the facts. It might not be out there, and I like that. So yeah. So could we summary it up? Like, I'm gonna share your 50 reasons.
So I've written a lot of this people can visit my blog, extremewellness.co.
Okay.
There's a blog there which feeds poems and some of this information.
So I'm going to reference to that. Yeah.
And I've written about the 10 toxic truths. So you need to try and reduce your toxic load.
Yeah.
And that toxic load is from toxic stress, from toxic debt, and people are going to go into toxic debt from all of this, from social isolation, from toxic food, from toxic air, and toxic viruses and biological agents, also from electromagnetic radiation, also from pollution. So everything you can do to reduce that toxic burden gives your body more ability to cope with any stress.
Yeah.
So that's really important. So having the right attitude, eating well, getting sunshine, getting exercise, getting fresh air, reducing, turning off your Wi-Fi at night, putting your phone on airplane mode so it's not next to your bed when you sleep. So during your sleep is a big time when you detoxify, because your brain cells literally shrink and they get flooded with the glial cells, like remove all the toxicity while you sleep. So that's a really important thing. It's also important why it's not good to eat before you sleep.
No, exactly.
Because eating takes a lot of energy, and you don't want the blood to be in your gut digesting when you want it to be in your brain detoxifying while you sleep. So generally de-stressing your body is really powerful. And as I say, one of the most powerful de-stressors is other human beings. So being around others and enjoying social connection is really valuable and important. And people are doing it on Zoom, but nothing replaces human contact. I mean, dancing, partying, these are really important outlets that I used to write that when I'm still a medical doctor, but I used to write on a prescription pad. These are the things you have to dance 3 times a week. This is your prescription, and people would get better. So enjoyment, fun, focus within, follow your bliss. Well, fun is a really important biological compass to what is good for you. And I'm not talking about fun of shooting up heroin or something, because that's actually not that fun, or the next day it's not, So it's using that biological compass of what is actually good for your body, and, joy. And, and one of the most fun things I found for myself, and most other people I think are the same, is helping other people. That's really fun. That's why I've been working 14, 15, 16-hour days in the last, 6 weeks. I've had so much fun. But because I'm helping other people, I'm trying to do as much as I can, get things out there to help other people. So find out how you can help people, and that actually boosts your immune system. Helping other people is a really powerful immune booster. So go out and find someone. If you're feeling down, go out and find someone to help.
Wow, cool, man. Cool, Mark. Well, might be contacting you again offline or directly.
It's just a random call. You just called me up at random, like,
I did
your
that.
morning, my evening.
I thought, okay, I'm going to talk to Mark, and so I can send an invitation, blah, blah, blah. And my finger just touched the dial, and hello, it's Mark. Wow, it's like, woo. I still get a little bit starstruck, but I can live with that. So, thanks for the talk. I feel much more comfortable now to kind of like starting to open up for the extreme wellness concept, which I've been studying, not directly by you, but I followed you, and we share this knowledge from the Wim Hof method and the man himself. Happy birthday, Wim, yesterday. Yeah, just a few minutes a day, right? Breathing just a few minutes a day of contrast.
Doesn't take long.
Exactly, and just go out in the sun a few minutes and then build it up slowly, no force. This is powerful stuff. That's why it's called extreme wellness. And yeah, you are the inventor, and I'll be seeing you up here sometime within the next, I don't know, months, years. And
I don't know, Greenland. We've got a date to go to Greenland.
We go for the Disco Bay and do an extreme wellness retreat at the Disco Bay in Greenland. I'm going to set it up. I have contacts up there. I'm working on it. So when the world opens up again, yeah, you're going to get an invitation.
God willing.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the call.
I'm going to follow your mission here in the Nordic area. So you're in the south, down under. I'm up over here in north, and I'm going to
pretty much as far away as you can get. We're on literally opposite ends of the world.
Yes, we are. I'm going to share your personal story that I had a dream, and it made my dream come true in 2000 to go to Australia. So, so we are more connected as well. Within this, when we are still, we are all connected. So I'm going to be still now and connect with you on a different level, and I'm going to start spreading the extreme wellness concept here in Denmark. So thank you very much.
Thanks for the chat. It was great. Yeah, thank you.
Namaste. Have a nice day.
Namaste. Yeah.
Cheers.